Hello, folks. I am so excited. So many people are here for story. I thought you guys would be all very serious and hardcore and not be willing to come after lunch to talk about story. I hope you're as excited by it as I am. While people are milling about and finding seats, I just want to take 1 minute and have you guys draw your childhood hero. Do you remember who you really loved when you were like, I think 8 years old is a really sweet time, you know? And for example, someone for me was, let's see if you guys can figure her out. Exactly. We got some Tom girls in this, and maybe, what do you call Thomasina boys? So Pippi Longstocking, her goal was to make friends. Because she was lonely. Both of her parents were gone, right? If you remember these stories, her mother was up in the clouds watching her with the angels, and her father was running an island somewhere in the Caribbean. He was a pirate-ish. So what we're going to do is you're going to draw your childhood hero. I'm going to sort this camera out a little bit. And you're going to do the goal, the motivation, and the last part, which we're going to talk about a lot today, which was the conflict. Why did she have a hard time making friends? She was 8 kinds of weird, which is why she was my hero. Okay? So just take a second, draw your childhood hero. I will work on getting you the best possible image of this paper, because this paper is going to become very important to us. Let's see if we can get rid of that shadow. Okay? And you should all have paper, or if you want to make it on a Post-it note, because I don't know, you have a very fine pen, go to town. Okay? We'll just take a couple minutes for this. Okay, folks? You can hear me clap once. You can hear me clap twice. You can hear me clap 3 times. Thank you, Laura Klein, for that trick. Okay, folks, so thank you for joining me today. Goal, motivation, and conflict is an incredibly important idea. We're going to talk about it over and over and over again today, as we look at how we can use story as part of our practice as product managers, as designers, even as engineers, certainly as CEOs. I'm sure everybody's told you how important it is to tell a good story. But there's not as much information out there as we would like on how to tell those stories. And so what I'm going to give you is basically today, I'm going to give you a story architecture. So let me tell you, I have a little secret. You won't find it on my LinkedIn profile. I'm EBT, everything but thesis, for my master's in writing, in creative writing. So I went through all the classes, all the courses. I had to make up a bunch of extra classes because I went to art school, which means apparently all I learned there was to draw, and as you've seen, and I promise to continue to make bad drawings for you for the rest of the day. But here I was needing to write my thesis, and a thesis has to be a collection of short stories or a novel. So I sit down, this is embarrassingly 20 years ago, and I write this long novel about this young woman who's waits tables and wants to be a writer, and you can imagine this profound slacker story. It was so boring, I quit. I was bored by my own writing. And luckily the internet showed up then, and I taught myself some HTML, and the rest of my life went pretty well after that. So, you know, I've worked at places like LinkedIn and Yahoo and Zynga. And at Zynga, I learned something really cool. It was a technique called OKRs. And after I left Zynga, after a very long laydown after I left Zynga, I wanted to write about objectives and key results. I thought this is an amazing, amazing technique that will change lives, except it's a boring acronym. Who was going to read a book about OKRs? And I thought, I can do what Patrick Lencioni did. 5 dysfunctions of a team, death by meeting. I could write a fictional case study, and it'll be a story, a novel, and everybody will want to read it, except I remembered I didn't know how to write anything that anybody wanted to read. So being a child of many librarians, I did what a good child of librarians does. I did a literature review. I read every book I could find. I read screenwriting books. I read novel writing books. I read serious E.M. Forrester conceptual books. I read books on how to write graphic novels, like seriously, absolutely everything. And I started seeing these elements that people talked about over and over and over again. And I thought, I see a pattern. And then I finally turned to science. And I came across this guy. His name is Kendall Haven. You can look him up. And he's a really cool guy. So he was originally an oceanographer. He'd studied that. And then he kind of dropped out and became a professional storyteller. Now, I'm not completely sure how you make your living a professional storyteller, like Renaissance fairs and children's parties. I don't know. That's why I've never switched over. But he was part of a group of professional storytellers. And they said, Kendall, you're the most sciencey guy here. Get us a DARPA grant to explain why we know this structure for story works. Because they all agreed there was a certain form to story that always worked to get people interested. And he did it. He got the DARPA grant. And he did the whole thing. He put people in MRIs, he did dopamine swabs, everything. And so he came up with a structure of story that also works. It gets people attention, gets their comprehension, and gets their retention. These are like the holy grail if you're a professor. How do I get you to pay attention to me? How do you help you understand what I'm saying? And how do I help you remember it? So you guys ready to see what this pattern is? Yeah? Okay, let's do this thing. As long as my computer doesn't go to sleep, we're in business. Okay, so I call it the story wave. And it's sort of like an ocean wave. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it kind of collapses, right? And what do we need first? We need a character who has a goal, right? Has to want to do something. And this goal can be almost anything. If you're familiar with Hitchcock, he always talks about MacGuffins. There has to be a thing they want. For example, Harry Potter, he wants to kill Voldemort. And who doesn't have an evil sorcerer that's been giving him trouble, right? We all have that problem. Okay, maybe not. What we do have is a shared motivation. This poor kid has been stored under the cupboard like a bunch of potatoes for most of his life. And he finally found family. Now, family is a universal motivation. So when we think about our goal, she wants friends because she's lonely. Lonely is a universal motivation. Your goal can be just about anything, but your motivation has to be universal. Or your goal has to be the same as your audience. So when you're pitching VCs, you can sometimes use a goal of making buckets and buckets of money, 10x return, even though that's not a universal motivation, although some days it seems like it's pretty close. But as long as your motivation, your character's motivation, and the audience's motivation are the same, you'll create a bridge to empathy, to connection, okay? Now what we need next is a reason to get going. And that's called the inciting incident. Now, we all want things, right? We all have desires, we all have motivation for it. I want to lose weight because I want to dance at my daughter's wedding, I want to be healthy, I want to be there for her. And isn't it funny how month after month after month, we don't get going on that motivation? So we need somebody to kind of kick us into action. Bilbo needed a wizard to deface his door. That was Bilbo, excellent. And maybe I step on the scale and go, maybe my doctor tells me I have high blood pressure. Your customers are going to be the same way. They're going to want something, they're going to need something, but they may not act on it until something kicks them into gear. And if you can put yourself as a company into that inciting incident, you have an opportunity to catch them. So now what we need struggles. Story is made by struggles. If you don't remember anything else from today, remember, no struggle, no story. Conflict is really important to us. We've been telling stories for over 250,000 years. John McWhorter, a Harvard professor in English, says that if all of human history is a clock, then we started writing things down at 11 o'clock p.m. Now, that means that we are not evolved necessarily for writing. In fact, there's a lot of people who think that's what dyslexia is people who are not completely evolved for writing yet. But we are evolved for stories because that's how we passed on knowledge before we had writing. When we tell stories, the conflict said, this is important, remember this. When we told a story about the young man who went out and tried to pet the really big kitty and came back with one arm, that's an interesting story because stay away from the big kitty. When we talk about Grandpa who tried to eat the red berries and threw up for 3 days, that's an interesting story because that's a survival story. So our brains are already wired to look for conflict. We're going to look for those struggles. It's really important. Now, this is a literature piece. There's almost always something we call a crisis. So, who here has not seen The Princess Bride? Good. Only a couple. When I do this in my undergrad classes, they're like, huh? So for people who haven't seen it, I'm going to give you some spoilers, right? But I think it's been out long enough now, I'm allowed. So my favorite character, and I think a lot of people's favorite character, is named Inigo Montoya. Oh, yeah, right? And Inigo Montoya, when he was a little boy, a six-fingered man, betrayed his father, killed his father, and stole a sword. And Inigo Montoya spent his entire life training to be the best swordsman in the world in order to kill the six-fingered man. But there's a slight problem. While he's been training to kill the six-fingered man has wandered off. Who knows where he is? So he's been searching the world for him, and he's been having some bad luck. So near the beginning of the movie, he meets the dread pirate Roberts, and he is about to fight him. He says, "How many fingers have you got?" Right? He says, "Nope, 5. First try, first fail." Then he wanders the village trying to find the six-fingered man. Can't find him. There's a try-fail cycle. Struggles are often referred to as try-fail cycles. So then his best friend Andre the Giant says, "Hey, I know where the six-fingered man is." Yay! He's in a castle we can't get into. Boo. But dread pirate Roberts can probably figure it out. Yay! But the dread pirate Roberts is dead. Boo. But he's only mostly dead. Yay! Those of you who haven't seen it, it's that kind of movie. So they get him back alive, but he can't break in because he needs a wheelbarrow. Oh, fail. But then they find a wheelbarrow and a couple other things. They break in. Finally, Inigo is facing the six-fingered man. He's ready to fight him. He's saying his catchphrase, and the six-fingered man goes, "Ah!" and runs away. One more try, fail. So he chases him down, corners him. They're fighting. We're ready. Like, as an audience, we're dying for this satisfaction. Finally, there's been so many try, fails, and what happens? Inigo is wounded. He's dying. We're never going to get the revenge we're seeking. And what is he? So that's our crisis. That's that black moment where we believe that this goal is never going to be met. And what does our friend Inigo do? He reaches deep down into his fortitude, his anger. Thank God he'd never seen a therapist. His name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. And he slices, dices, and skewers him. And he wins. That's called the climax. Now, the thing about the climax is, in history, in the old books, the god would come down. Like Zeus would be like, "Here you go. Here's my magic thunderbolt," or "I heal your wounds." But modern audiences are not so into that. What they prefer is they want to see their heroes save themselves. This is a really important idea, and it'll show up again later. So we got our climax, and then at this point, the audience is like, "Oh, thank goodness," and their attention starts wandering off, right? And so we head into resolution, where we wrap up the little bits and pieces. What I find interesting about resolution, so you have all seen Lord of the Rings, probably as well, most of you, or read the books. There are like 5 endings to that damn thing. The resolution is like a whole other book, right? It's like, how many times are we going to finish this movie? That's a very long resolution. People are kind of vaguely annoyed by it, except for the hardcore Tolkien fans. I'm with you. Then if you think of a Jane Austen book, it's like 400 pages of will she, won't she, will she, won't she, and then there's a marriage proposal and we're done. Like, I could use a little more kissing. Like, give me some satisfaction here. So both of these people have been successful breaking the rules, but in general, you want to give people a few moments to enjoy the satisfaction of the story. And then this is an idea you'll recognize from Joseph Campbell. I don't think I could ever give this without his name coming up, which is also one that we demand more and more from our heroes: return home changed. Now, this is an optional one, and I can prove it. You know who never learns? James Bond. That man's never had an epiphany in his life. He's had a martini, but never an epiphany, you know? How about Batman? Not a lot of personal growth. Now, I think this is, just saying. Still angry. So someone who I think, a character that does reflect our changing tastes as modern audiences is Sherlock Holmes. Now, Sherlock Holmes in the original series, he's like an asshole at the beginning and an asshole at the end and just always needs another case or a shot of heroin or something, you know. But the modern one does seem to be able to learn as best his psychosis allows him to. We start to see some changes. He is starting to care for people. So I think that our modern sensibility that demands that if we suffer, we should get something out of it is starting to show up, and return home changed is starting to become a more and more important part of the pattern. Okay, so now we start to have the beginning of something we can work with here, right? This is our pattern. So there's only one thing that doesn't fit on the arc that you absolutely have to use in order to get people engaged, and that is use them everywhere. Details. So details create something called transportation. It allows you to step into the story. And you don't need a ton of it. You know, some people just go like, you know, when they're making their personas or something, they're like, yeah, she's 23 years old and she dropped out of film school, but she's gonna go back and blah, blah, blah. Like, I think of a detail like a diamond in a plain gold setting. Just mention one tiny thing that lets me really see who she is. Blake Snyder, the screenwriter, he wrote Save the Cat. He's a screen doctor. He calls it a limp and an eye patch. So, for example, Nick Fury, especially when played by our best friend Samuel Jackson, he has his limp and his eye patch. And nobody ever explains it, but we know he's seen things, right? We just see him come in with that eye patch. We're like, yeah, that guy, he's been places. So think about those little tiny bits and pieces that you can drop into your story in order to get people to put themselves in that person's shoes. So now we have it. You guys, luckily this is a novel writing course, right? And we're all gonna use this. No. Let's do something with it. What I wanna do is I wanna do an exercise right now for creating a story. So entrepreneurs, I think, need at a minimum 3 kinds of stories. You need their story, the story of your user. You need our story, the story of the company. And you need my story, my personal story. You need their story because, duh, you should understand your users, only because you want their money, you know, or maybe because you're altruistic or you want to change the world. I hope at least 2 of those are true. You want our story because you're going to pitch if you're going to raise money. And you're going to want your story because it just comes up a lot, trust me. Sometimes it's in a networking event. Sometimes it's when you're trying to recruit a person. But let's start with their story. So you guys all have paper. And we're going to do a little origami to make this into 6 panels. I always like to sort of like go, where's the middle here? But they don't have to be perfect. They just need to be close enough. Close enough 6 panels. So take a piece of 8.5 by 11. Nice big fat sheet of paper. If you are sufficiently good, you don't have to fold it. I just find it's a really easy way to get 6 semi-equally sized panels. Okay. Oh, you know what? I forgot to do something kind of cool. Shoot, we'll do it after we do this. Actually, no, you know what? I'm going to wait on this. Can you set it aside? I do want to do one other thing. Just keep it. Trust me, we'll do it. We'll do everything. We will not skip anything, but this is just too cool to not do. Okay, this is going to require 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. That's unlucky, we'll do it anyway. 13 people from the audience. I need 13 people from the audience to stand up in a line. Do you trust me? Come on, trust me a little bit. Come on, come on. Some of you love it. Some of you love it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. See, we're going to get there. You know, if we don't get 13 people, I'll make some poor guy come up here and stand. Beautiful. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Come on. I teach for a living. Of course I'm going to call on you. Duh. Okay, ready? So remember we talked about all these elements on the arc? Okay, I want you to think about a character, their goal, and their motivation. It can be anything. I want you to think of a setting and a situation. So you're going to want to think about details in this. Not too many, but a couple of good ones. So a setting is the place, the situation is what's going on. Like a back alley where you're hungry and rats are biting on your toes and you're living in a box. That's a combo. You got it? Okay. You're going to have the inciting incident. You're going to take what they say and move them to action to fix their situation, right? Crappy situation, it's the hardest one, so respect. Something they try, make him fail. Something the hero tries, fail, try, fail, make it so bad they're doomed. Historically, people have cut off legs. It's not very nice, but it works. Okay, so then they cleverly overcome their lack of legs in some way. Wrap up the story if there's any like loose ends, sort it out. You get the fun job. Okay. The moral of the story is never take cheese to a bread fight. No, that would work out. Okay, so, trust me, you get the laugh line. Okay, are we ready? Everybody's got something? Well, you guys are going to have to make stuff up. Okay, ready? Are you ready to go?
Sure.
Okay, go.
Astronaut. Oh.
No, go ahead. I'll just point it generally.
All right. Astronaut, do we need a name?
Yes, details.
Very exciting. Susan Smith.
Susan Smith.
Goal is to go to Mars.
Mm-hmm.
Motivation is to push the boundaries of human exploration.
Okay, where's Susan right now?
Susan is on the launch pad and a hurricane is about to start.
What's she going to do? Let's get going.
She will run the other way around the hurricane.
That works well if she's a Flash. Okay, what else is she going to try?
So she's going to try sailing to the other side of the world to launch from there.
Where there's fewer hurricanes, hopefully.
Yes.
But
Unfortunately, the launch window doesn't work from China, so she has to come up with a new one.
She builds a time machine to find a solution from the future. Unfortunately, the time machine took her to the past.
She pretends to be a deity to inspire locals to provide her with an ecological accommodation to go to.
brilliant.
He has a conflict of interest, civil war breaks out.
And it's the wrong deity, it's the one that they hate.
Oh! Legs chopped off.
She heads to the jungle and is able to raise an army of cats, which will crush the people that did not affect her.
I hope those cats have opposable thumbs.
And as a result, they create this time machine that successfully sends her into the future.
And so the moral of the story is check the Weather Channel.
Thank you. So the reason it was so important for me to make that happen was because were you like, what is she going to do now, right? Like time machines. If you can continue to thwart the struggle will always make an interesting story. I've done this so many times, and every single time it creates an interesting and engaging story. It's not always a sensible story, mind you, but it's always interesting. And to be honest, the reason I always do the moral of the story at the end of it, is because it makes you realize what the theme is. And so sometimes when I'm working on a plot of anything, actually, I'll go ahead and I'll say the moral of the story is, and then it kind of makes me think, what am I really, if I have 3 morals, it means there's a kind of a mess going on in my writing. I don't have a clear idea. So once I have the moral, I can go back and take out everything that's not about checking the weather patterns, or maybe not. I like the time machine stuff. Okay, so we now have this, right? We've got our piece of paper, and I want you to think about your key audience for whatever you're making. Like, who is this person? What is one of the most useful people that your customers, right? And so think about that customer, and okay. So here's one of my customers, okay? You guys got it? And I want you to write just the goal and the motivation. What is their goal? What are they trying to do? By the way, preferably in the space you're working, like if it's a mom and you're doing travel for moms, don't talk about the fact that she's struggling with packing a lunchbox, but you get the idea. And then why does that matter? If you don't know her motivation, if you don't know her motivation, you can't get to how much she cares. If her motivation is it's annoying, she may not be looking very hard for a solution. If her motivation is she needs to make sure her children are happy and healthy, that's going to be something she's going to want to buy things for, right? That's something that's powerful enough to make people go into action, okay? So just take 30 seconds more. Maybe I want to take my daughter to travel because I want her to appreciate diversity and not turn into a pinhead like some people who will not be mentioned. So we all have goals, we all have motivations, right? So travel is very important. It's not just rest, it's cultural education. Okay, now I might be thinking about this for a long time, but what's the inciting incident? Inciting incident. So this is the thing that's going to make them start to look for a solution to their problem. And right now, it could be one day I can't believe I'm going here, but I'm apparently going to go here. I look at my daughter and I realize that all her friends are blonde. What the heck? Okay. True story. Okay, we're gonna have to get out of here. We're gonna have to get some travel, some adventure. Okay, so take another 30 seconds. And if you want to take a Post-it note and write down 3 or 4 things that you think might motivate them, feel free. That's your process. It's a good process. If you were doing this with your team, you'd probably very much want to write down a bunch of different ideas. So see if you can draw that inciting incident. So next, we're going to put in struggle. Now, this is a really important panel for you guys. There's 2 kinds of struggles that are particularly useful for you guys. One is competitors, and the other one is homegrown solutions, right? So maybe somebody is already offering, I guess I'm going to stay with my uncomfortable metaphor, diversity tours, see 8 colors in 3 days, whatever. Homegrown is I'm going to plan a trip to Costa Rica and I'm going to take her into the villages and I'm going to solve it for myself. So I used to work for a startup, and it was called Eat Club. And what was interesting about Eat Club is it delivered lunch. You've never heard of a startup in Silicon Valley that delivers lunch, right? And he used to say, our competitors are not those 500 other guys. Our competitors are a tuna fish sandwich in a brown bag, right? Like, they're clearly already trying to solve this problem. If they really would be willing to buy your product, they would be trying to solve it already. Early evangelists are almost always marked by this. So what we're going to do is you're going to draw a picture of whatever you want. You can draw a picture of your competitor. You can draw a picture of how they're solving it today, okay? How do we solve this problem today? If I was doing the weight loss thing, I might go with, I tried eat less and exercise, and that was just so easy. I don't think I can change stories midway. Okay. So I'm going to give you a minute to think about that and draw that up.
What makes this a struggle?
So they're trying to solve it. And if they solved it, they're not going to use your product. But if they're trying to use it and it's not working, like eat less and exercise, so maybe I'm uncomfortable with this 8 people in 3 days because it's too fast. I don't actually get to meet anybody. It's not meaningful. Maybe I'm freaked out about trying to take her to Costa Rica myself because I'm afraid it's not safe. Why is it, you're right, there's 2 parts to this. It's that they're trying to solve it and that it's not working out for them. If it is working out for them, I think you're going to have to compete on price, and nothing sucks more than competing on price, I think. unless you have technology advantage, and then something works out well. It's better to be Apple and charge people a lot of money and have a technology advantage. So they say on the streets. Okay, so I'm trying these things and they're failing me. I'm trying to eat less and exercise. I'm trying to book something. I'm trying to figure out where I can go safely to have my daughter experience a world of excitement. But it's struggling. And then the crisis. This is, if you remember, this is where we suddenly go, oh, this problem's never going to be solved, this poor person. So this is her going, my daughter, she doesn't understand the value of cultural diversity. She just thinks, I really wish I'd chosen something different. Now you're all going to write notes about my PC issues. And they won't be lies. Oh no, my daughter doesn't understand because she just thinks that these towns are poor and she wants to go home and there aren't enough video games and she really misses her video games. And it's a huge struggle. Like, what does failure look like? What is the problem going to go wrong? With eat less and exercise, it's an easy one. Like, if I don't solve this problem, I'm going to get fat and terrible. If I don't solve the problem of decent accounting, say timesheet managements, I'm going to get fired, right? Or I'm not going to, if I can't do decent expenses management, my salary's going to get eaten up by expenses that I should have been reimbursed on. You know, what's a horrible solution if they don't solve it? Like, what's nice about this is you should be able to get it from interviews with your users. And if you're not, you might want to ask your users, hey, why is this problem so important for you to solve? And they'll tell you, and then you can use it on your splash page, your marketing page, you can use it everywhere, right? So think about that. Maybe you don't know right now, maybe it's just a hypothesis. This could be an opportunity for a hypothesis for you guys to test later on when you get back out. Okay? Let's take a second to think about it. What's the worst thing? How is your user going to suffer if they don't solve this problem? Okay? Now, this one is our climax. You're going to like this one. This is the one where your product saves the day. Hooray! Our erstwhile mom is on her iPad and she sees in the Apple featured a game that lets you play with different cultures and experience various festivals around the world, and I don't even have to spend money on an airplane. This is the most depressing solution I've ever thought of. But the kid's happy. She loves her iPad. Hooray! I can learn about cultural traditions and still eat popcorn at home. I'm sorry. So think about that product. This is where your product appears. Now, the best thing you can do is we don't want the gods to just say, here's the product. We want to think about where does she find it? She's searching, right? Maybe she found it on the Apple featured. Maybe she sees a TV commercial. If anybody here is from marketing, this is a sweet spot for you. Where would our fabulous hero suddenly discover this answer she's been dreaming of? She would find it where? So think about that. Where would she trip over the answer so that our hero can really come into her heroishness? Okay? Now we're going to say return home changed. Return home changed. So how does your product make your user's life so much better? We get to finally see our user. Now she's achieved her goal. Is she happy? You know? Our erstwhile mom is now having a sleepover in December where all the kids are celebrating all the holidays. It's they're having Hanukkah, and they're having Kwanzaa, and they're just eating all the kinds of foods and loving all the variety of diversity. I think this is what my school does. Replaces diversity with celebrating all the holidays. I didn't mean to be this angry. I'm so sorry. you know, how is her life changed? Is her little girl kinder, sweeter, more gentler, more understanding, more adventuresome? How has she been profoundly changed by the interaction with your product? Is this person now got a raise? Is the person who's finally using your fabulous time tracking solution now going to save enough money for a trip to Costa Rica and actually go places? You know, what does it look, how's their life better? Now, again, this is material to motivate you, to motivate your team, but it's also material you can use in your marketing material when you're selling it. Let's have a picture of complete success. This is a beautiful story. Let's take just a few more seconds, add a few smiles and dots and lines. Okay, so stop. And what we're going to do now is we're going to share, okay? I hope you don't have any patentable secrets in your fabulous drawings here. Turn to a person near you, and we'll just take a quick 3 minutes to share your drawings. And if you want to give advice on how to make their lives worse or better, make your story more powerful, go for it. Okay, let's wrap up. And we're done. Moving on. Okay, folks, so was that hard? Was it easy? What do you think? Did anybody come up, what? Drawing is hard. There are some good books. No, there are no good books on it. Try Ed Emberley's Make a World. I think it's also for 8-year-olds, but it's awesome. You should buy it and spend some quality time with it. Drawing is actually really satisfying work. So when I do this particular project, I do it as part of something called a charrette. A charrette is a very intense design cycle that started in I think the early 1800s in Paris, and then Google rebranded it as a design sprint, and now it's a hot thing. So what you can do is everybody can draw their own version of the company, separately and silently, of this story. You get your team together, and then you share to each other, and you find out, first of all, is everybody on the same page? Because not everybody's on the same page. And then, is anybody smarter than you? You know, maybe somebody has a better idea. And then you can do another version of it in which you redraw it and you start getting cohesion. And then I usually have people start sketching out that fifth panel. We start designing work from that. I have a very long blog post on eleganthack.com and on Medium about how to use this in context of a design sprint. So, but I think it's a powerful story, and it's something that you can use, like I said, to feed marketing, to understand it as a group. What's interesting about it is I started using it for when I went out and I did customer interviews. So I would show them rough prototypes, and the first thing I would do is I would show them a cleaned up, better drawn version of the story, and I'd say, is this story true? What is this? How are you different from this story? And it started validating a lot of the preconceptions that I even had about the problems people had, which was a really amazing tool. And then when I would show them the product, it had shifted their mindset from theoretical, oh yeah, that looks cool, yeah, sure, I would totally buy that, to, oh yeah, I'm in the middle of this struggle. It created an emotional connection to the problem that helped when I was showing them prototypes and roadmaps. So I think that this is actually a strangely useful little cartoon. Okay, so I said there was another kind of story you guys probably want to tell, and it's the our story, the story of our company. Okay. So this is the infamous elevator pitch, right? You're stuck in an elevator or an escalator. Some people go for the escalator pitch. I like to think of it as running into Jeff Clavier at the bar. How can I convince him very quickly that my business card is worth putting into his wallet as opposed to the trash? So what I want to do is I want to think about how am I telling the story of my company, right? And so what we saw before with this, right? There's a lot of try-fail cycles. Nagel Montoya had a lot of try-fail cycles, right? In our improv, we had 3 try-fail cycles. In this, we have basically 1, right? They try a couple things, they give up. We're going to make it even smaller. We're going to make it into a micro-story. So the micro-story is very, very, very teeny. And it's the situation with the possibility and the struggle and the solution. So the situation can hold a lot of interesting things right now. We could have our TAM here, right? You guys did you get forced to do a TAM, SOM, and SAM? This is a big problem. It's a $20 billion a year problem, right? People are really struggling to get their kids delicious lunches, you know? So we're going to talk about the situation, right? It's like, wow, people have a real problem that would make us a lot of money if we could solve it. And then we have possibly this hint. And we know it's true because, you know, people have tried. So here we're going to have why your competitors can't do it, right? So people have tried this, that, and the other. People have tried selling organic pre-made lunches, but the price point has made it impossible to get market penetration. You know, so remember our struggle here. Now it's going to be other company struggles. Other company struggles. But our company has figured out a way to source local produce and use spare time for students to pack these lunches and deliver them, and therefore we will win. So here's this situation with its possibility space, right? Right now, our company is doing this. Here's the competitors, what's been tried before, why they suck, and here's how you don't suck. Make sense? Any questions about that? Here's our potential. Competitors sucking. We don't suck. Right? Okay. Now, let's do a quick exercise. I think we can take 1 minute to try to write these as a 1 sentence to 3 sentence pitch. Ready? $20 billion market. People are trying to get healthy lunches to their kids so they don't eat the Taco Bell in the cafeteria. Right? Big situation, sexy situation. Competitors have tried something. Go. You can do it. Don't get tired. Eat a cookie if you have to. Let's do it. Let's do it. Okay. Same deal. Let's pitch each other. You just met your dream VC or angel at a loud networking event where there's 100 other people they want to talk to. Be impressive. Go. So what do? Okay, switch. If you haven't gone yet, switch. Give each other advice. Do a second version. If you're done, do a second version. Make it better. Make it longer. Make it more robust. Add more struggles. Why else do the competitors suck? So, I just want to check in. Does anybody have a pitch that they're particularly proud of? Okay, you guys clearly require motivation. Anybody have a pitch they'd be willing to share for a free book? Oh, yeah, see? Hands show up. Okay, I'm going to give this to you because it can prove that you can be good or terrible. You still get the book.
Okay.
So let's hear it.
Okay, cool. So, yeah, we've got a situation where people who are older are losing their hearing, and they're unable to communicate with their friends and family. There's a big possibility because 80% of the people who are losing their hearing don't choose to wear hearing aids. A lot of that's because of the stigma. And so we've got this product, and it's a wristband that gives them information based on vibrating motors about what sounds they're hearing, whether it's a T sound or a P sound or a K sound. And our struggle is trying to make sure that that is something that's fashionable to wear and that we can prove is easy to understand. And so our solution is being able to make a really good product that people can use and is easy to wear and better than a hearing aid, and everyone's going to buy it.
Thank you. Great. Thank you for being brave. Now I'm going to point out to you that you were there halfway through. You could have made it even shorter because you said, you know, what 80% of people are losing their hearing. I don't think you have to quote the population of baby boomers to people. I think it's in everybody's deck at this point. You talked about, but people won't wear hearing aids, because that'd be my first response is, oh, hearing aids, because they're not fashionable. So we're going to do a fashionable wristwatch. And then you have to pause and give people space to go, ooh, tell me more. One of the things about doing this kind of hook in a bar situation or in an elevator situation is you actually don't want to tell people everything. Because the thing that us humans respond to, like we respond to conflict, is mystery. Our brains want to close the circle. So a open-ended mystery in your pitch can get people to ask you more questions and want to know more. Ooh, fashionable? Or I might be like, yeah, we don't invest in stuff like that, go away. And now you just saved your breath, okay? Does anybody else is willing to share theirs? Yeah, we got one in the corner. I'm not going to throw this because I throw badly and I would just hurt someone. Okay, let's hear this fabulous pitch.
Every company needs to hire good people, but good people don't respond to cold outreach, and they're not necessarily looking for new opportunities. We find people you already work with that know good people and reach out with a warm lead.
Okay, so how are you different than LinkedIn?
So LinkedIn is a cold opportunity. Basically, you are searching out and you are reaching out as a recruiter, and they're not necessarily responding. Like the response rates on LinkedIn are really low.
That's interesting. I think you got the struggle in the last one, which is LinkedIn looks like it's supposed to be weak ties, but it's not working. Response rates are actually really low. So I think I would just up that struggle just a little bit more, find one sentence that has a little more punch so that we understand, because it feels like there are a lot of people trying to solve this problem. Why are they failing? So I just want a little more of that punch, but I love that the way you're going to do it is you're going to incite people. People to introduce other people.
Yeah.
So I just dial up the passion. So you make it a core concept, and then you just want to dial up everything, get a little more precise, test it on each other. Like what happened just now is invaluable. You test it on somebody next to you. Now, when you go to the reception, I assume there's going to be some kind of reception or lunch. Like, you guys now all have a pitch in your back pocket, right? You should start telling it to everybody. Here, at least everybody who's in this class will put up with you, right? So there's that. Okay, so pump up the passion, tighten up the story, refine it, take a little quality time to get it just right, okay? Is anybody else just dying to go, or shall we move on? Okay, let's do the last one, okay? Remember I said there's one more story if you want? So this is like a weirdly important story. I have a lot of friends who are seed investors and angels. They come to my classes, and they want to know why you. They want to know why you in a couple different ways, why you have the experience, but also they want somebody with passion. So I'm sure you've been told this, but having a startup sucks. Like very little on the planet sucks, and it sucks for a long time. It's really hard. There are a lot of pivots. You run out of money. Your co-founder threatens to divorce you. It's hard. And we do it because it's important, and we do it because we care. So we need a story that's going to help people understand why we care so much. Okay? And this is going to be another micro story, because you don't want to do an enigma once again when you're running into people in the elevator. We're going to do another quick short. I think that line is a little bit off. One more time. Struggle now. Okay, so the way I like to write it is, I wanted my goal because motivation, but conflict, and then you get to decide if you want to stop and leave it a mystery and see if people will listen to you, or you can do then and therefore. And I'm going to fill this into here as well. So I wanted my goal. Here I am. Yay! I have a goal. Because motivation. I didn't even know about the hearing aid problem until my best friend steadily was going deaf. And he would rather not be able to hear me than wear his ugly beige hearing aids. True story. And he's been hearing about a lot of surgery. You know, here we have the usual, right, struggle. Remember our old friend struggle, conflict. He was talking about surgery, but he couldn't afford it. He was thinking about wearing his hearing aids eventually, but keeps putting it off. You know, why can't this thing be solved? But then I realized, as a designer, I could make these hearing aids look good. I could make them a fashion accessory, inside. And therefore, I started my company. Therefore, I'm raising money. I have this is my beautiful Climax, right, which is insight. I had an insight. It's my insight because of who I am. Remember, they're going to ask, who are you? Why are you engineer? Why are you designer? Why are you the right person to solve this problem? What are you bringing to the table? I'm getting squidgy. So you need me to rewrite something? And therefore, I'm raising money. Now raising my A series. Now raising. This is that wonderful Climax that we talked about before. Okay? So why you? Why do you care so goddamn much? Why do you know something that other people don't know that's going to make this work? Okay, so we've gone from having fun to therapy. Let's do it. Are you ready to write your sentence? Be strong. Okay, let's do this. 2 minutes. Write why you. Turn to your partner and share. And partner, don't forget to coach. Make a suggestion. So who's ready to share? I will call on you, so if you're on the fence, be brave. Especially you women, you know, we don't have the courage to brag about ourselves. Come on, ladies. Get the practice of embarrassing yourself in public. It's good for you. Somewhere, feel a vibration. Which of you two? Ah!
There you go.
Yes! Yes!
Okay. So I used to work in the music business. And I was in the music business at that time when they were trying to figure out how to grow and change with technology, but they weren't doing a very good job of it. And I became very discouraged and decided that while that business was contracting, I wanted to work in a business that was growing, which drew me to mobile technology. So I was working in mobile, and people were really focused on how things looked on mobile devices and not so much if it was being useful to people. And businesses really weren't focused on the right things. And basically, I found my company at a trade show, Urban Airship, and was really motivated by the problem that our technology solves for, which is to understand what people need in that moment on this device and be able to deliver an experience that lets them solve the problems that they're solving for. And I had never seen anything like that before. Until that point, I had been focused on downloads and things that, you know, ultimately weren't solving for any problems for consumers. So that's what we do, and that's why I get excited about my job every day.
Wonderful. So as you refine this, you're probably going to say this over and over and over again. I don't know about you, but I'm asked over and over again, you know, why teaching, why this, why that. And I think you're going to want to look for, I would add just a couple details to paint a picture. So, you know, I think you started to get it in the beginning when you were talking about the music and how the music industry was contracting. And there I just wanted a line like, in my workplace, people were just thrashing and running around like chickens with their heads cut back while the numbers went down, or something maybe even a little more vivid. Like, I knew I was in trouble when the light started blinking on and off. You know, nobody cared enough to replace the fluorescent light. You know, I don't know what your stories are, but a little tiny thing to get us a sense of despair. And then you would switch to mobile, but you couldn't find your feet until, and this is a 2, she had 2 struggles, so you'll have to decide if that's too much or too little. If you have somebody who's really impatient, they're always keep looking to find someone else, you may want to start with just the core struggle, which is, everybody was thinking about how mobile looked, but nobody thought about what it did. And then, boom. So, I think, just again, it's going to be an open question whether you want to shorten it or not. I think it's going to, like, again, it depends on the audience. I know that when I'm trying to talk to anybody in a networking situation, I can't, keeping people's attention is a nightmare. So I would save that second part until afterwards. You know when you watch a murder mystery on TV, and what do? They open with a murder, and then they go backwards to show what led up to it. You could do that too. You could dive straight into the struggle, and then go back and say how you ended up there. So it's gonna be judging the audience. If somebody's already bought into you, they're gonna follow your struggle. If they haven't bought into you, you have to get straight to the exciting part, which is there was so much mobile that none of it was converting because it was all crap, which is true. I think you've got all the elements. Now you're just refining and organizing them. Okay, we have one more. Yay! Brave man. Go David. Daniel.
So I used to be a science editor for an encyclopedia. So I'm kind of an idealist like that. I moved to Seattle with my wife last year. I found my company now, Life Stories, just looking for a job. And I guess what made me want to work there is, you know that Joe Stalin quote, "One death is a tragedy, a million deaths is a statistic." So that quote really bothers me because, you know, I think in our society right now, a lot of people say that both sides are bad. This problem might be less here, more there, but it's a problem everywhere. But it's important to, you know, quantify which is better, which is worse. And that's data communication, which is what our company does. We empower everyday people who aren't like Excel experts or programmers to work with data and show like, you know, we're improving here, we're still work here, but these are the facts and this is why it's important.
Thank you. Tips. One is you use some qualifying language, and it's really hard to avoid it. You said, "I guess this is why," and that is a message of insecurity. And so you're going to want to practice your sentence to remove that kind of language, because if you don't trust you, how am I going to trust you with my bucket of money that I'm thinking about giving you? So that's one of the things to think about. So watch out for qualifying language. This is why we practice these sentences. We practice them over and over and over again until they're clean, they're precise, and they just roll out. In fact, what's interesting is I just finished up Chris Anderson's new book about TED, and he says there's a point where you've memorized it where it gets wooden, and then there's a point where it's just natural, and you don't have to think about the words, you can just think about the emotion that goes with it. You're clearly excited though. Like, I love the energy, you're like almost twitching with excitement, as were you, who I'm gesturing towards your top of your head, but I know my base name, but there's that passion, don't ever lose that. Like sometimes when we go in front of an angel, we think we have to be very precise, we have to use lots of numbers, we have to tell them absolutely everything, and we have to be like a robot. No, we don't want to hear that you've been doing everything perfectly. We want to hear that you overcame struggles. We don't want to hear that you have all the data. Well, we want to hear you have all the data, and you love that data so goddamn much. You know, we need both. We need the right brain and the left brain together to make a successful pitch. So that's one of the things. And I also love the use of a quote, because it was a quote close to your heart. Quotes can also be distancing, but I think that quote works for you. I just want to make sure that you finish the circle. That quote says, single is a tragedy, statistics are not. Maybe what you're trying to do is create statistics that are a tragedy so that people can move people to action. You might want to think about how to close that loop, okay? These are great, wonderful me stories. I know it seems silly, but if you can say a why us story, if you can say a why them story, if you can say a why me story, then you can get people to believe in your cause. And if you get people to believe in your cause, you can get them to invest in you, you can get them to work with you, you can get them to sign up for your beta product, and you can keep your own energy up. Like, this has to be a personal story. This has to be a story you believe in, because we get tired. It's a long haul being a startup. Okay? So, I have 2 more books, and it's time for Q&A. So, question? Because must have questions. Yes?
So,
you want one?
yes. The difference between, finding out the difference between the first them story and the us story, it seemed like the main difference with the us story was bringing in the business opportunity. Does that sound right? Or?
So the us is about the company. Why is this company going to be insanely successful? So one of the things that, again, I feel lucky because I've been teaching this entrepreneurship class for about 4 years, and I've had so many guest VCs come in, and then because I'm not pitching them, they tell me what they look for. And they really want to know, why is this company going to succeed where no one else has? right? How big is this opportunity? And why are you going to succeed? And so the struggle tends to be about, people are really looking to solve this problem that will make a bunch of money, or that will touch a lot of people, and we have not succeeded. Other people haven't succeeded, but we're going to succeed now. The me is, this is why I have the guts, the courage, the passion, and the insight to lead the company or be part of that company. So,
And the vague story.
it's more about, let's look at where our product lives in the customer's life so that we make sure that we really are solving a problem that's big enough and meaningful enough and that they don't have solved enough, that we're not lying to ourselves. Because one of the big dangers with being a startup is you spend a lot of time lying to yourself. If you lie to yourself, you're in danger. So using your research, turning it to a story, helps also unite everybody in the same picture. We're trying to solve this problem for this person. These other things have not succeeded so far. Does that help at all?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna get somebody in the back because I have no books down back there. In the way back. Loaned in the glasses.
I was wondering what your favorite picture is.
Oh gosh. That's an interesting question. I think the problem is that by the time I hear a pitch, because I'm not investing in people, I'm watching students on a journey. By the time I hear a pitch, I kind of know the whole journey because I've been watching them pivot. But there's one pitch that like made me cry when they finished it because they've been trying to figure out how to help elderly people stay in their homes. And they knew there was money there. They wanted to be a B Corp. They didn't want to do a pure nonprofit. And they looked at so many things: roommates, changing the house, getting carpenters, fixing things. Like they've gone through so many things over and over and over again. And through endless interviews, they just finally discovered that there's tons of money to stay in your home. There's like so many grants available that nobody knows about it. And so they finally got to the why me, which was because they were designers and they knew a lot about information architecture and creating findable retrieval systems, they were able to create a system that allowed people who were a little bit older, so big fonts, clean, super intuitive, lots of testing, to find the grants that would allow them to stay in their homes. And it was one of those moments where they stuck with the problem to the very end. They knew it was the right problem to solve, and they just kept trying different things, going back, testing with users, and when they landed there was an inevitability to their pitch. There was a story of passion, there was a story of potential, and I guess it was like enable Montoya. There was about 8 struggles that they got through and they nailed it. And if you go read up Steve Blank's Lean Startup pitch, an alternative pitch to the classic pitch, you'll see it really has all the elements of story underneath it. He just is making it all kind of sciencey. But it's still a story of, we've struggled and we really know our stuff and we know why this is the right solution better than anybody on the planet. And you couldn't argue with them and they were done. Ma'am?
So one of the things in story is sometimes like hyperbolizing details and that. How would you kind of blend the detail story with an authentic, true, purpose, I guess, at the end, like a moral at the end of the story? How do you kind of blend that when you're telling a story, especially in this like corporate story?
I think that I replace hyperbole with precision.
Okay.
So I don't have to make things bigger, I have to make them clearer, and I have to paint a brighter picture. I never, ever say the moral of the story is this, because people are like, yeah, just take out a stick and smack me upside your moral stick. I write it for myself so that I can then go back through the story and make sure that everything is supporting this idea that, my students who were trying to help the elderly, they were talking about accidents, and they were like, they picked out a story of I'm trying to remember, I'll make something up. A friend of theirs who went to see their grandma and found her in the bathtub, and she had been there for 3 hours, and thank God they had come by, but she had slipped, and she was in a lot of pain, and she'd broken her hip, and there was no phone in the bathroom, and and now the kids were thinking about putting her in a nursing home, and she doesn't want to go. And so that moment of slipping in the bathtub, it was there for 3 hours. 3 hours is a very precise number. It's a picture we can all imagine. So when you're looking for a more emotional punch, rather than bigger, try precise. Like I said, a detail is a diamond in a gold band. It's not a diamond necklace. one sharp thing that makes that moment connection. The person behind you went, ah, when I said 3 hours. So there we go. So time over is being waved at me. I imagine you did with it some snacks. So bye, thank you.